What are we launching a spaceship here, Dave?
T-minus.
I know.
10.
He's 5,
9.
4, 3. This is the Backlash. Welcome. I am your host, Rebecca Hargraves, joined as always by Mr. Dave Riley. What's up?
Nothing much. How are you?
Pretty good.
How was your weekend? Do anything fun?
I went to the street fair twice.
You went to the... Why didn't we coordinate this? I feel like we could have coordinated going to the street fair with our families.
Because your reputation is so toxic that outside, you kicked out of John Birch Society. I can't be seen with you anymore, but doing a podcast with you and becoming deeply financially entangled with you is okay. That's
Speaking
fine.
of, I do have an update on that. I got a second letter from the John Birch Society just yesterday.
Oh, they were like, no, really, fuck off.
Yeah, basically. But no, I mean, I thought it was great. I went down there. We went to the resort. Had a great little drive-by meeting with Representative Barbara Ehart. You know, got to introduce her to the family, shook some hands.
Cute.
Think we're going to talk a little bit more later. You know, I love the conservative legislators here in Idaho are always very available and good to talk to. So big shout out to Barbara Ehart. Thank you. You are our legislator of the week here on the Backlash.
Which is a new segment that we're totally not going to do.
True. But yeah, no, the John Birch Society said,
Hustle through this.
I'm
Hustle.
going to. Shh. It's fine. Dear Mr. Riley, after having considered this matter carefully, we honestly believe it's best for all parties concerned that your membership in the John Birch Society be terminated.
They already terminated you.
There is no refund due at this time, as the last payment was received more than 30 days prior to this letter. So thank you again for kicking me out of the John Birch Society, guys. You have given me more street cred than I could possibly imagine by doing so. Anyway,
World-class racist over here.
absolutely. All right, we have to plug our platforms, I think.
You can find us on X at Real Backlash, our website, thebacklash.net. Support us on Subscribestar/thebacklash, patreon.com/thebacklash. Send your super chats that will be read live at the end of our show. Questions for our guests at thebacklash.net/superchat. Please sub to us on Rumble, Backlash Podcast, YouTube, at Real Backlash. Is that everything? Thank you so much for joining us today. We'd like to thank our sponsors, Atlas Bullion, Idaho Tallow, Antelope Hill. We'll be talking about them in a little bit. Without further ado, please welcome our guests. Dave.
Yes.
Welcome our guests.
Oh,
welcome our guests.
We are joined today by a couple of amazing guys from Twitter who were recently on that episode of Jubilee with Mehdi Hassan. And we've got with us, that's the wrong button, Pinesap on the right side of the screen and Doomernat22 on the left side of the screen. So thank you so much for being with us, guys. This is wonderful. We get to do a little...
Our pleasure.
Post-Jubilee
awesome.
recapping.
I'm super excited.
Do you guys have anything you want to introduce yourselves? I mean, I know Pinesap is a Catholic apologist. Doomernat just stormed onto the scene out of nowhere.
So he's a Fed, is what you're saying?
No.
I've gotten plenty of Fed accusations. We all do, right?
Yeah.
We all do, but
Why don't you go first, Mr. Pinesap?
Well, as you guys know, I'm Pinesap. I'm a Catholic apologist, and I love the America First movement with, Nick Fuentes. Really, what I've wanted to do is sort of bring more of a Catholic ethos to the dissident right. I've wanted to help evangelize people who otherwise, I think, have a very easy time accepting the Catholic faith and just defending it in any way I possibly can. So that's my background.
I loved hearing them talk ahead of this because I'm like, this is it just enlivens my spirit to see the youth that we have nothing in common with because of our age.
Shut! I said not to say that. What are you talking about?
Right before we went live, Dave was like, we really need to stop acting like we're so different than young people. I'm like, we are old. Like, it's not, you can look at our faces. We're not going to be able to like connect with the youth
Does
in the
this
way.
face look old to
Yeah,
you?
for sure. You look 37.
I'm 36, for God's sakes.
Okay, you look 36.
I mean, during this interview, I've got Subway Surfers playing, Family Guy in one quarter. It's just the Zoomer brain rot going on. What can I say?
Skibbity toilet.
It's like a different language with you guys.
Yeah, I know.
All right, how about you, Mr. Doomernat?
What is your background?
Yeah, I'm Doomernat or Seth. I don't know. I post a lot on Twitter. I don't know. Yeah, I'm just a white guy on Twitter who just voices his opinions.
Based.
How did this Jubilee thing happen? I don't know. Do they like curate the list of conservatives that are going to be there? How do they do this? We had Sarah Stock on. She gave us a little rundown of that.
I think Sarah's the in. I think she's the conduit through which based people are making it on to Jubilee.
She was for me. So normally what you would do is you would go through the casting process where, you submit a video of yourself, you kind of answer the questions they have for a particular episode, you send your social media profiles, and then they make a determination of reaching out to you and saying, hey, we'd love to have you on. But in this case, the episode that me and Doomernat were on, it was a really sort of a last minute thing where Sarah reached out to me and she said, hey, like 5 people dropped from the 20 far right Republicans versus 1 progressive episode. Would you love to come on? And considering that I saw the casting list for the next months out were like teenagers, black guys, ex-cons, no demographics that I fit into, I was like, okay, this is a perfect opportunity to go on Jubilee.
Yeah. That
episode, I mean, I just a friend recommended it to me, and I just applied, and they liked my application. It was a pretty smooth type of easy process.
Man.
Nice. Well, yeah, here, we've got a couple of clips. I don't know how much of this we're going to play, but like you came out the gate, Doomernat, you came out strong, leaving Mehdi Hasan speechless. Let's see.
Hey, how's it going? I'm Mehdi.
What's going on, man? Nice to meet you. All right, so first, before I start, I need to know what you mean by good. I can talk about the economy, I can talk about culture, I can talk about all those things. I need to know what you mean.
All of them. I'm saying immigrants are good for the economy. They're good for culture.
Lower wages are
they're
good
for
the
society. Where's the lower wages?
What do you mean, where's the lower wages?
Where are the lower wages?
Yeah, so you can
What's
look
the
at
basis for saying no lower wages?
Sure, so you can look at like the STEM industry. It's been in like a complete and total recession. There's been tons of studies like from the Economic Policy Institute that shows that like companies like Tesla, companies from like Silicon Valley, they engaged in mass firing of workers, around 35,000, but then they hired around 12,000 H-1B visas. And it's kind of just standard economic thinking.
It's not standard economic thinking. The vast majority of economists and economic studies suggest that there is a negligible, if no impact on wages over time from immigrants. In fact, your colleague mentioned earlier, construction, there is actually evidence in construction, yes. But in some industries, in some areas, there is an impact. But overall, no. In fact, a study from the National Bureau of Economic Research found that migrants since 1965 have raised wages and raised innovation.
Who's that by?
National Bureau for Economic Research.
No, hold on. That's where you publish studies. I'm asking for
I didn't memorize the names of the authors.
Yeah, I know you did. Right?
Can you give me the authors you've got?
Yeah, hold on. The study you're talking about is from Giovanni Perry, and what he did is he didn't account for aggregation issues, nor did he...
The vast majority of studies...
Let me speak.
Please.
Yeah, thank you, right? So listen, he didn't account for aggregation issues, right? And when you look at like the spatial approach, which is what all these economists use, you're not accounting for the fact that when immigrants come into an area, natives leave. If you look at an occupational approach where you look at the specific firms that immigration is going into, like Kim, ETAL 2013 did, you find a net negative impact when there's a 10% increase of immigration. You find around a 0.5% decline in wages when it comes to the specific occupations they're going to.
So
all your studies are flawed.
So 0.5%.
So anyway, that's pretty good. But you came out swinging.
Yeah.
You actually knew the study that he was referencing. He is so smart.
I'm very familiar with this literature. He's not familiar with the literature. He just knows talking points. I've spent a great deal because I'm into economics just generally, and I'm also into the immigration and dissident right politics. So it's very easy to synthesize those two things on this issue, because immigration is also the biggest thing is culture and the issues regarding that, but also it does make working for a good living wage actually makes it very harder. And a lot of these studies, same way with academia does this with all the prominent issues, whether it be on transgender stuff or anything like that. They use very bad methodology to skew the results and what they want to find. And there's a lot of issues with the methodologies that they use. And when you look at a more very specific and more rigorous approach, you do find exactly what you would expect to, which is that immigrants do actually lower wages.
In the same Jubilee debate, this chick from John Birch Society, she's a social media manager from John Birch Society. We watched her on last week's show get absolutely spanked, although she seemed very smart, because she made immigration a cultural issue and would not address the racial issue. Can both of you individually address this point, because we did an entire show last week on when you how you fail if you do not address the racial component of immigration.
Pinesap, do you mind if I answer it first?
Yeah, absolutely. Go right ahead.
Yeah, immigration is a racial issue. Immigration was not a problem when it was Europeans coming into the country. They assimilated and did very well. And then when you make the immigrants non-European, the results are very different. And also when you don't make it a racial issue, once again, you can just, appeal to this broad like native category, but the natives here are very different. There's Black natives that are born here. There's Hispanic people that are born here that are second generation immigrants. And when you count all this into a big group of people, that is going to cause a huge aggregate effect when it comes to just natives, because these groups are very different. Immigration has to be a racial issue because nations and countries are effectively racial. Nation, that's what it means. It means, the root word of nation has its roots in like ethnos and things like that. Your ethnos is essentially the genetic cluster or the, smaller part of a race that you're a part of. Immigration has to be made in a racial argument because, number one, like I said, you have these other issues, but number two, our founders, and for the vast majority of our history, our countries viewed immigration as a racial thing. We didn't let Chinese people into the country. We only allowed white men to be citizens until, of course, you have like the 14th Amendment, but for the most part, our immigration policy up until 1965, so the vast majority of our country's history, was about preserving the white supermajority demographic of our country.
Well, go right ahead.
No. I was going to say, Pinesap, you're like kind of uniquely qualified here to also talk about this issue and connect it both to race and why it's not outside of the magisterium of the Catholic Church, because like what Doomernat22 just said. I mean, we are living in a really interesting time, right? Where we are living in a world that is like post-separation of church and state. We're, dealing with the issues of money being separated from the state as well. And now we've also got this issue where the people are being separated from the nation. Where this concept of nationhood no longer has any reference or weight whatsoever to the people. Mm-hmm. So can you put that in context with, I guess, like the Catholic magisterium and make an argument for why this is all possible from an Orthodox Catholic perspective?
Absolutely. So essentially, the way we conceive of a nation in Catholic theology is not someone being able to sing Yankee Doodle Dandy and reciting the Constitution well. A nation is the kind of conglomeration or the woven tapestry of a people's ethnic makeup, their culture, their history, all the identifying factors that make a group what it is. And so in Catholic theology, and this is even with the recent magisterium under like St. John Paul II, you have this conception of wanting to preserve that ethnic, that racial makeup of a nation, because if you don't, there's actually a twofold component that's a problem. And a lot of people like to accuse us of saying, oh, you're being racist or you hate these people. Not in the slightest. It's a human tragedy to have the situation of balkanization that we do in America, because what it creates then is ethnic tension and ethnic hatred. If we were able to live in these countries where we were still the supermajority, and maybe there were some other minority groups, but still kind of constituting our general core ethnic makeup, there wouldn't be this sort of separation that we see. But instead, in a lot of major metropolitan cities, we see racial animosity, we see, protests seemingly happening every single year that seem like low-scale race wars. And the kind of harmony that the faith is supposed to bring does not promote that. Instead, what we want is a situation where everyone gets to live in their culture and their homeland, free from all violence, completely peaceful, being able to develop in an effective way, and not really at each other's throats, because in that way, all that enkindles is the actual prejudice that one might have towards another race. And so this is why in Catholic theology, I believe even the compendium of Catholic social teaching speaks on this very well, repatriation for people who are in this country, such as refugees, maybe illegals or what have you, is actually the Catholic approach. And that should, of course, be done ethically, not at the barrel of a gun or anything like that, but through ethical means. But nonetheless, it is Catholic teaching, because the magisterium has always understood that if you have just an unfiltered immigration system, you're going to have just tension, animosity, the common good will be harmed, and people will not have the right to their nation anymore. And that's a huge problem and a sin against justice.
Yeah.
What do you?
Can I add on to that real quick?
Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, and another thing that I would say too is Pope Pius XI, actually, in his encyclical against the Nazis, you say whatever you want to about that, but in that he said something interesting, which is race is a fundamental human value. And the reason for that is because, like we said, your nation and your ethnicity and your race, those aren't just ideas. Those aren't just feelings. Those are in nature. That is a part of what it means to be human. And if it is in nature, like the Bible tells us, everything that is in nature is a part of God's creation. So just like your local family and just like, your brother and your sister and your cousin, your race is also something that's a part of God's creation that is a gift to you. And thus we should preserve it just like we preserve and cherish all of God's gifts.
Yeah. No, I think it's really important because people misread that encyclical. Mit Brennend or Sorg is what you're referencing.
Yeah.
What Pope Pius XI says in there is it actually is praising social order. He's praising efforts done to preserve culture, to preserve your race. What he criticizes is the elevation of natural goods over where they belong. And what we've lived in a society, post World War II, where anybody that says that, having any kind of positive affection towards your people is a Nazi idea. Therefore, we need to completely abolish it. And so anybody that shows any level of love towards themselves or their race is viewed as a Nazi. Whereas what was actually being criticized was the elevation of race towards the level of deity. Which is what Pope Pius XI was kind of criticizing there. Just for and I also want to make a point that this is interesting. We were originally just going to have one of you guys on, but then I found out that both of you are Catholic, and I'm like, let's do this. Let's bring it on. So
that's awesome.
Do you guys think that we should avoid this trend, this organic trend, to move into white enclaves, because it is creating this de facto situation where we just have these racial fiefdoms, and I think that it might increase these racial tensions. However, our co-host Cameron, he's always talking about proximity to multiculturalism being a positive factor for white unification.
That is a really good question, actually. When I consider it, my own experience growing up, I lived in communities that were generally majority white, but there were also a lot of non-white people there. And there was a lot of peace and harmony. There was no problems. There was no issues or what have you. I think, again, if, as Joseph said earlier, as Doomernat said earlier, if you have sort of this super majority, you have this super majority of, Americans or what have you. And they're non-white people are Americans too, in the context of if they have, kind of stake in this country or history in this country. But if you have sort of that super majority present, I think you're good for the most part. I think it's when more you start to get into these areas that are being gentrified, these areas where, again, they're trying to kind of shove people together in almost those sushi box apartments you see going up in all the cities where, the construction's super cheap, it's poorly done, they're going to be out of style in maybe like 5 years. That's a situation where you do get that multiculturalism where we're living on top of each other and then people are at each other's throats. And I think that's when it becomes an issue, when you're trying to do the kind of melting pot experiment rather than just having a normal community where, maybe there's some, white people, non-white people, but it's a more organic unity.
Right. All right.
What I would say, and I can kind of speak directly a part of this because I grew up and I still live in a much more diverse area. And it's been like this for the vast majority of Americans' history. There's something called white flight. And that's when non-whites move into an area, whites naturally really don't want to be there. And so they leave, they go to another area. And so with this, what Avril's doing in the return to land and stuff like that, I think that's just the natural response of white people. White people want to be amongst people with themselves. I think that's a very healthy and natural thing. Residential segregation is definitely a thing. White people move to the suburbs to get away from multiculturalism. And I think doing it in a very explicit manner is the healthy and natural thing to do. And I think that's something that we have a right to do.
Yeah. Now, Pinesap, you said something interesting. And I guess this is a question for both of you. I mean, I don't think anybody can argue with the fact that there is such a thing as like foundational Black Americans, right? Like there were Black people here at the beginning of the country. We have the amendment that makes them full citizens. But is it possible that there are more than one American nation, right? Because we were talking about this idea of separation of nation and people, and it does seem like the American people are a white people, or whatever you want to, call that. So is America really kind of a construct of multiple nations? Are only white people American? What are your takes on this, guys?
I think my take on that is currently it is multiple nations, as Pat Buchanan wrote famously a long time ago, where, we used to kind of live in really kind of one America, or maybe two at most, but instead it's like 4, 5, 6, 7, how many others, where you go to these areas and it's like a different country. I mean, when I was down in LA for the Jubilee recording, it was like I was driving in a Brazilian favela. It felt completely hostile. I mean, it felt that hostile. I saw barbed wire everywhere. I saw broken down buildings. I legitimately did not want to get out of my car. I was like, this is freaky. This is horrible.
Yep.
But what I would say is that the kind of unity that we need in this country is, again, the preservation of that white supermajority. But on top of that, I think this is where the faith comes in, because what I have seen in my experience since becoming Catholic is parishes where you have different races of people, you have people from different backgrounds, but there's almost a mutual respect, love, and honor that is given to one another that doesn't demand that, we have this kind of fake multiculturalism, we have this fake mixing about or what have you, this sort of like forced integration, but it's a very organic unity that I would almost say is miraculous, where, people go to mass and someone who is maybe not from your similar background is as very much as your brother as though he might be, right? A good example is in Lakewood, Colorado, there's a beautiful Maronite parish that I had the pleasure of going to. And many of the people there were actually refugees from Syria back in the 80s when the Civil War was going on. Well, they invited me to their feast. They invited me to their parish like I was their brother, like I hailed from Syria itself. And I saw in that moment such a beautiful unity that I can only describe as the presence of the Holy Spirit. And so I think really in regards to America, what we need to get to is sort of an America that is the white supermajority and Christian, but specifically Catholic. Because if we have sort of the religious divisions that are currently present amongst us, it's just going to continue to be, those Baptist preachers in the South basically preaching like a race war, like a Jesse Jackson or something like that. Versus like if we have, as evidenced by Catholic kingdoms in the past or what have you, bishops and priests that kind of unite us all together in that presence of the love of God and the mystical body of Christ, there's a real organic unity there where we still get to preserve our race, our people, who we are, and we get to love one another. And I think that's very beautiful.
Yeah, one of the things that I feel like when you get into arguments with people is, you look at what's happened over the past 100 years, 200 years with the erasure of American nationality, with the erasure of, white people, with this kind of attack that's been going on, especially since 1965. People seem to forget that for 1,965 years, Europe had borders and they had their cultures and their languages, and they were defended very strongly. We had crusades over it. We had the Reconquista, and so this idea that Christianity necessarily means that you have to, give up the fight for your ethnos is total bullshit.
Right. All right.
Well, look at the Confederate South. Confederate South was arguably one of the most Christian Protestant nations in the part of the country, and they waged the whole Civil War not just over their race, but a more niche and personal identity to them, which was, of course, the South. And throughout all of America's history, I mean, just to be a little blunt here, the more Christian you got, the more racist you got. Like the more and more Christian you would go, the more racist you would become. You go down to the South, what they call the Bible Belt, where there's a church on every corner. That's where the segregation was happening. That's where the Jim Crow was happening. So historically, not only has there never really been a tension between your racial identity in Christianity. It's actually much more been something that were correlated and synthesized with each other much more than you would find in more secular areas.
That's true. One of the major criticisms levied towards Catholicism, and I'm also Catholic, is that they are responsible for a massive amount of third world migration, and they are. And every Salvation Army, if you've been to major U.S. cities, every Salvation Army is a problem. It's a rot on the city, and I think the Catholic Church has done. They have made major errors, and they are deeply infiltrated. What would you say to the critics of Catholicism that are worried that this type of Catholicism will be the one that takes over in the event that we can get some kind of Catholic monarchy going?
Pinesap, do you want to take that first, or?
Yeah, well, I was going to say, some of those Catholic groups, they're not really headed by Catholics.
No. What do you mean, buddy?
What do you mean they're not headed by Catholics?
I know that's hard to believe, but it's a little on the nose. But what I would say is that they're not headed by people who believe our faith. Let's put it that way. And it's funny, you look at their board of, I guess, like trustees or like their hierarchy, and it's like, I've never seen that person in mass. I wonder what in fact, they seem to be out and about Sunday, but Saturday they seem weirdly gone.
I know.
What's going on?
What's going on here? Mr. Bronstein or whatever the hell.
Yeah, I'm like.
And not only are the ones, not only can you find Jews at the, to be frank, not only are you going to find Jews sometimes that are at the borders of these things, but if you go and look and you see like who the funding is behind a lot of these quote unquote Catholic NGOs, it's the Open Society, it's people like that. It is Jews. But also, I think that's a little bit of a cope, to be honest, when we talk about, who's involved in pushing, when we're talking about who's actually involved in bringing people over here, who are the people that are accepting them. It mostly is the group that we just discussed. I'm pretty sure the largest refugee NGO in the country is actually the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society. And there's also tons of secular organizations that are also either headed by these people or funded by these people. There's a really good article in the Occidental Observer that goes through who exactly is involved in it. And if it's not heading the NGOs, it's also like who are these local judges who are striking down these anti-immigration laws. And a lot of those also happen to be
I was just joking about Bronstein, but there she is.
It's true. This is the board of directors of Catholic Legal Immigration Network, Inc.
Look, everyone is a hideous
Susan Schreiber,
hideous
Sarah
Jewess.
Bronstein, Lolita Brayman, Michael Edelman, Rachel Nagar.
Doesn't sound very Catholic to me. I can tell you that
exactly
much. Doesn't
Catholic,
sound very Catholic to me.
I don't remember seeing them at any Catholic events. That's kind of crazy.
Indeed.
You can go to your local Reformed synagogue, though, and you'll probably find them there.
Absolutely. What I was going to say, though, is, I remember when I first kind of got involved in this movement, we used to hear the classic, tirades of, Catholicism's third worldism. It's a brown religion and all these kinds of things. And Catholicism, encompasses all races of men. But the beautiful thing about belonging to the human family, whether you're white, black, brown, doesn't matter, is that it still also preserves those beautiful cornerstones of the human family too. I've always said it this way, in a family, you're not like your brother or your sister or your mom or your dad exactly. You are you. And that's what makes it's so beautiful that you're a part of a family, is you have your unique identity, yet you are united in this bond of love and charity with these other people, while not, needing to absorb one another. You don't need to become your sister. You don't need to become your brother, right? And I think that's the same thing with the church, is that if we look at actual church teaching, I don't care what some maybe liberal bishop who disobeys the magisterium on like everything else has to say. I think we should look at what does the church officially teach in regards to nationhood and immigration. And if we look at it, it's the most balanced, it's the most humane, it's the most beautiful and sublime teaching on this issue out there, because it avoids extremes such as, the Wignats that are like, let's just go to the border and shoot everyone or something. But it also avoids the sort of, board of Catholic legal trustees that says, well, why don't we let everyone in? A melting pot and all that, it avoids both those extremes, right? And I think that's the beauty that Catholic teaching has to offer America. And I don't think that a lot of the critics really take any time to actually read. They just sort of make a judgment based on an organization slapping the name Catholic on themselves, and they're good to go.
Right.
One thing I'm just going to add to that about, because you hear this a lot, Christianity or Catholicism is like slave morality, it's brown coded, whatever. How did the brown people like discover, quote unquote, discover Catholicism? How was it brought to them by like Europeans conquering the world? Like that's how Catholicism spread, at least from Europe to other countries. It was Europeans going on the ship, taking over, founding the new world. And we also brought our church. So bringing up the fact that, you know, a lot of Catholics now are brown, it actually does speak to the type of dominance that Europe was at when we were all Catholic, which was literally discovering the new world, literally dominating the entire globe, something that's really never been seen before in human history. And to add on to that fact, we are Catholic. We adhere to Catholicism, and it's Roman Catholicism. It is centered in Rome, which is the greatest civilization to ever face this earth. I mean, Christianity flourished in Europe. All the great Christian philosophers were European. And they were also building upon a philosophy, scholasticism, which borrowed heavily from pre-Christian European, quote unquote, pagan philosophers, was mostly Aristotle, but also Plato and the like. Yep. It's a very, once you get into the details and the specifics of it, it is a very European, quote unquote, Eurocentric faith. And it's been criticized heavily from liberal scholars and particularly Jews for being like that.
Yeah.
Western paternalism, though, it may have been a mistake in that it pretends, the basis of Western paternalism is the belief that all men, if exposed to a philosophy, can rise to some baseline level of morality, of being an intellectual. And I'm not really sure that that's true. But the irony of what you guys are saying, which I think is so funny, is that Catholicism and a lack of integration in Western countries, that really is the best way to preserve international diversity in a pure sense. So maybe you guys are just truly proponents of diversity.
True. Diversity is our strength. Diversity is our strength.
I said when everything went down, I said, try love. Try love. It's like, we are the real fighters for DEI. We're the real fighters for diversity, okay? So don't attack us.
Well, there is kind of something to this, like especially when you look at Chicago. Not Chicago as it is today, but Chicago as it was before Eisenhower's interstate program destroyed all these cities. You know, I hate to plug it because it pains me to do so, but E. Michael Jones' book, The Slaughter of Cities, is actually really good. And I don't understand where the disconnect is, because he wrote that book, and that was what, you know, one of the things that initially kind of got my attention with him. And then, of course, like he goes off the rails and completely rejects the idea that like race even exists.
He's the reverse Jared Taylor. He's the reverse Jared Taylor. Like, he's pretty good on the Jew stuff, get into race, horrible. Same thing with Jared Taylor, except the opposite. Bring up the race stuff, bring up the Jews.
Yeah.
Not gonna touch it.
No, it's true. But I mean, you know, when you go through Chicago, you know, if you ever have the chance to go visit, you can look at how, I forget what highway it is, but you know, when you're going north-south in Chicago, you can see how the highway would, like, you'd have a church like 5 feet away from this elevated highway, and then on the other side was where the parishioners lived. And so it went from basically like 1 week you could get up and walk to church, and then the next week, your parish has been alienated from you, and now you have to somehow go all the way around the highway to get back to your parish. And this was done specifically to cut up the ethnic voting blocks that were happening in Chicago. And there still is like the Polish neighborhood, but they had the Lithuanian neighborhood, they had the Italian neighborhoods, the Irish neighborhoods.
Now they're all Mexican.
Now they're all Mexican. Now they're all black. Now it's a problem, and poor Nick Fuentes has to live in the middle of it. But you know, anyway, where are you at? You got any? Okay, I've got a question.
I got all sorts of questions.
Pinesap, how?
Can we talk about Curtis Yarvin yet?
Well, we should at some point, because
I don't like that guy.
Well, you don't want to be ruled. You don't want to be ruled by dark elves,
right.
Well, you brought it up when you
Soft
you criticize Christianity as brown coded. Like, this is like textbook back network criticism of Christianity, and
I'm trying to steel man your argument here.
No, but I'm just saying, it's just like so funny. It's like you've got all of these like neo-reactionary types that are following Curtis Yarvin, literally a Jew, who convinced his wife to get vaccinated, and she's dead now because of it.
Oh, really?
Oh, you didn't know that? Oh yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
the biggest
he's
part
also
is he's
double
bankrolled by a
vaxxed, by the way.
homosexual, Peter Thiel. Like that's the biggest part, and a lot of these other guys are too. Like Bronze Age Pervert, he's also a literal Jew.
Yep.
And you know, these guys have a whole sphere, and it's based around this type of Nietzschean aesthetic. You know, be based. It's Bronze Age. You know, Bronze Age mindset. You got to have you got to think like a fucking caveman. And you know, it's like it's if you read his book, Bronze Age Mindset, it's like 150 pages, and a lot of it it's hard to understand because he's using these type of meme words. He's kind of playing around with words. It's trying to hint at like this type of post irony type of thing. But yeah, the biggest thing is Yarvin. I mean, he calls it a cathedral. I mean, it's not a cathedral, it's a synagogue. If this cathedral things exist, it's a synagogue. Yeah. And he wrote an entire paper about why he's not an anti-Semite. It's on his own blog. It's literally called Why I'm Not an Anti-Semite. And this is, in my opinion, this is the whole goal of the neo-reactionaries, because so many of them are Jews, is to make anti-Semitism look like they call it peasant anti-Semitism. They say it's brown coded. They say it's left coded. The whole point is to get all these white men to feel like they're peasants, and you want to be aristocratic Nietzscheans. So don't call out the Jews, point at this abstract power struggle so you can be based and rational instead of brown coded and leftist, and actually point and being like, this is an ethnic thing. It's a Jewish thing.
Mm-hmm.
Now, hold on a second. We've got, we might have to take a brief intermission here. I'm seeing on the screen.
I saw that too.
Yeah, I saw the free call thing. I just wanted to say that real quick.
Because
so we
are a budget.
Because we are they heard us talking about BAP and Yarvin. Mossad got shut it
down. Wait, you got to pay for this service, Goy. No, so we might have to do that because we are like a budget podcast.
We are.
Please send in your super chats. I'm going to go back to the group chat and send a new link. So while we're doing that, we're probably going to do some ad reads. We can do at least one ad read.
Sure.
So hold on a second, guys. We are going to end this call and start another one just so that we have enough clearance to go.
Man, I'm loving this energy.
Yeah, it's good. I like these kids. They're these kids. Geez, see, I'm even doing it. I'm doing it.
It's okay. Just embrace it.
No.
Embrace it. It's okay. We are the age that we are.
No, I will not. Okay, hold on a second. Let me grab this here, and we'll put that in the...
Why does the mirror image look better?
It's probably something psychological. But anyway, if you are liking this content, you can help support us by visiting our friends at atlasbullion.com/backlash. They are the internet's best place to buy gold and silver. They have plans starting as low as $55 a month. You can get a silver subscription or a gold subscription or a diverse metal subscription, which includes both gold and silver. Now, there is something that I do want to talk about with this because I had some user feedback. When you buy gold in fractional amounts, hold on a second. I'm just making sure that we're all good. When you buy gold in fractional amounts, the premium is higher. So, like, for example, if you were going to buy 1/100th of an ounce gold pieces, you will wind up spending like $1,000 more for an ounce of gold than if you just bought a whole ounce of gold.
So buy more gold.
Well, you could do that, or I'm just saying to be prepared for that, be aware of that, because in a situation where, you know, either we went back on a gold standard or if it inflated or something like that, you aren't going to be at a grocery store in a grid down situation shaving pieces of a gold coin off. You're gonna want something smaller that you can trade with, or you could just go with silver. Silver, of course, has a lower premium than gold. So anyway, just a thought.
This is why I buy jewelry.
Jewelry, you know, I was thinking about that too the other day. You know, because like you can't really get on a plane with like a 10-ounce bar of gold. But you could with like a 1 kilo gold chain.
Yeah.
If you were like a rapper or something like that.
Or if you're Dave Riley.
Where are you guys at? Let's see. They're not here yet.
That's okay.
Okay.
We can do another ad if you want.
This is great. I feel bad subjecting our listeners to these
It's
ads.
okay. Every time we have tech problems, I think of the Arval Nick Fuentes interview.
Do I need to like get?
makes me
Do I
feel
like
better.
need to pay? I just need to like pay for Google,
Ugh.
which would suck.
I don't want to
wanna
give these
them
Jews any more of my money. Yeah.
It's terrible. It's like, look, we got something that works.
I know.
We got something that works. Like, quick, charge them.
I do love
all right,
this
we're good.
this young person aesthetic, though. While we're talking about how old we are,
Oh, geez.
it's just so
Dude,
much.
me and Pinesap were yapping to each other like in the old call. Like we didn't even we didn't know the link.
Oh, geez.
No, I think it's great. You guys are clean cut. You're articulate. You're well educated, and I just love this anti-boomer revolution of the youth.
Can we continue the BAP and Yarvin conversation?
Hell
Is that
yes.
all right?
Absolutely. Go for it.
That's what we were talking about. So the BAP, Captive Dreamer, and a couple of the other ones they've blocked me.
Based.
And what's suspicious is they blocked me on the same day, around the same time. So that's a little sus. But Captive Dreamer on his third account, who's another one of these, Bronze Age perverts, affiliated with neo-reactionaries and stuff, calls anti-Semitism peasants. He says it's peasant anti-Semitism. He says to win, you got to be a Zionist. So this type of weird LARPing Machiavellian types. He's been nothing but A-logging the shit out of me. And it's just so interesting to me that the literal Jews who claim that Christianity is Jewish or brown coated and whatnot, they're literally Jewish, telling people to not be anti-Semitic. That's really, really sus, especially when you see and you look where the money's coming from, and it's like literal fucking CIA billionaire Peter Thiel.
Right. Well, I'm sure you guys already know this, but Jews have a remarkably high verbal IQ, although some people online have told me that study's been debunked. But it really is that they have sort of self-selected for subversion.
Yeah, I think that's true. Yeah.
And then they're able to talk their way out of just anything. So this element of appealing to the human condition and our desire to be seen as elite while we're living in pods and stuff, it's a really subversive but smart tactic, and I think it's going to be effective. I'm seeing a lot of people on the dissident right that are they're falling prey to the Curtis Yarvin worldview.
Yep. No, it's true.
It's the classic interplay throughout history of Judaism attacking Catholicism.
Mm-hmm.
It's the war that goes back to the cross, where, as Bishop Williamson said, God rest his soul, I hope he's in heaven looking
Amen.
down on us. When Tertullian famously said, as Catholic power raises, Jewish influence lowers. Catholic faith increases, Jewish power lessens. And we see Catholic faith increasing and Jewish power is starting to decrease. They can't go on Twitter anymore and post something about, October 7th, the hostages or whatever, without, people in their comment section ratioing them and saying, you're killing children, right? You're dehumanizing these people. You're calling these people Amalekites when we know that, the Amalekites were slaughtered in the Old Testament, that there's no group equivalent today of that group, right? So you dehumanizing an entire section of the population, what's wrong with you?
Yep.
Right? People are becoming familiar with
Like
their
Randy
religion
Fine.
too.
Oh,
Yes,
my God.
Randy Fine celebrating the
yeah.
death of a child.
Yep.
Celebrating. This is a man who makes our laws. This is a man who's supposed to represent our interests, and he's looking at a picture of a dead child and feeling no remorse. What does that say? What does that say about the state of our country?
He even got kicked out of APAC. It's so bad. Here, I've got the. This is the image, right? Supporting killing innocent people and babies and smearing voices that fight against genocide for some APAC money says a lot about your character. You should be ashamed of yourself. How do you sleep at night? And Randy Fine says, quite well, actually. Thanks for the pick. He also said, what was it? I just saw something new from today.
Lord.
Yeah, he's disgusting. He's a disgusting pig of a human being.
Bro is built like Peter Griffin. He's like we have Peter Griffin in Congress right now.
True, but we have the Williamson clip. I think it's only like 20 seconds long, so we can play this real quick.
And Tertullian said that Catholic faith and Jewish power are like the two pans of a pair of scales. As Catholic faith goes up, Jewish power goes down. As Catholic faith goes down, Jewish power goes up. because the Jews have always been, from the time that they crucified our Lord Jesus Christ, they have always been enemies of the Catholic Church. They have always known, they've always treated the Catholic Church as their number one enemy. And the communists the same. They know that the Catholic Church is their one enemy. The New World Order knows that their real enemy is the Catholic Church. And ever since Vatican II, the Church has been on its back, on the canvas, out for the count of 6, 7, 8, 9. The enemies of the Church think the Church is finished. It isn't. The Church will be back on its feet because God doesn't want the Church to be wiped out.
Amen.
That's the truth of it. And I think that this is the issue that we get into on the dissident right. People that are
I got to do a shameless self-plug too. I had the the pleasure of hanging out with His Excellency before he passed on.
That's so cool. I think that people are not recognizing, even in the dissident right, that this is a spiritual battle, and that if you aren't opposing Jewish power, you are failing in your most basic duty to be a moral human being. And that's why we're seeing Con Inc. just fall by the wayside, because there are people like Charlie Kirk, Jack Posobiec, all the usual suspects. Tucker Carlson now, that are not addressing Jewish power in a spiritual way.
True.
Well, and what is Tucker Carlson's spirituality?
Yeah,
Have we all
we
seen
don't really
his
know.
wrist?
Yeah.
Have we seen what he wears?
Mm-hmm.
He's wearing a red Kabbalah bracelet that's the equivalent of the evil eye to ward off evil power, to give him power. Well, I ask it that question, what's his religion? Is his religion Christianity? You know, he says, I think he says he's like Episcopalian or something. Really? Is that your religion? Is that who you worship at the feet of? I think in reality that someone like that, it goes back to something that St. Maximilian Kolbe famously said a long time ago, that, you know, Freemasonry is basically dead, right? I don't think that most, you know, old guys at the barbecue or whatever are running the world, but there is kind of this nascent, almost Freemasonic, Kabbalistic ideology that has survived Freemasonry. And as St. Maximilian Kolbe famously wrote, Freemasonry is basically Judaism for Gentiles.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
it is.
It is. And fundamentally, even though Freemasonry has kind of all but subsided and it's not really where it used to be, I think very much the ideas that it promoted, the supreme being, the anti-Catholicism, has survived, and Jewish people continue to use it to weaponize Gentiles against the true faith.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that
only thing I was going to say is I was just going to name a couple specific Jews who saw their work as deliberately going against the Catholic Church. I mean, the biggest one would be Sigmund Freud, the psychoanalysis. Kevin McDonald has a really good chapter on this, chapter 4 in his Culture of Critique, but he goes into very exclusive detail about how Freud saw his work in basically a revolt against Catholic and European sexual ethics and sexual traditions. He saw it as a revolt against Rome, and he also had correspondence with Theodor Herzl, who was basically the founder, not the founder of contemporary Zionism. Basically, he was a very, very proud and ethnic Jew, and he saw his work about, you know, sexuality and the way that it forms the psyche as revolting against European Catholic sexual ethics. And there's plenty of other examples. Al Goldstein, basically the founder of the contemporary porn industry, said he was asked in an interview, why are Jews in Catholicism? And he literally said, because we hate Christ and we hate Catholicism. Word for word, he said that. And that's the founder of the porn industry. So like you can go literally line by line. Yeah, you can pull up on the Wikipedia page. Yeah, he said Catholicism sucks, Christianity sucks. That's why Jews are in porn. And so you can literally go down the line of some of the most destructive, evil Jews, frankly. And they'll literally say it, whether it be with a fellow Jew in private or if they're in an interview or whatever. If the question ever comes up, they will let their hatred for Christ and his church be known.
Right. And Freud was also instrumental in this argument, normalizing the Jewish perversion, Jewish sexual perversion.
He was behind the sexual liberation. That's his work was the foundation of it.
And that really is innate to Judaism.
I believe, wasn't it in the 68 revolution? No. I'm blanking out here. There was a book. It was Wilhelm Reich's book that they were throwing.
Mass Psychology of Fascism.
Yeah, that was what was in
fascism arose because they were sexually repressing themselves. Yes. That was an argument that many, pseudo-Marxist Freudians were making. The Frankfurt School made a very similar argument with that, which is basically fascism arose due to the nuclear family. And when you have an authoritarian family, basically, that suppresses what they called a natural state of man. And because of that, this authoritarian personality and the suppression that it puts in it, fascism is the political expression of it. And the Frankfurt School were all Jews. In fact, not only were they Jews, Max Horkheimer, who was basically the founder of the Frankfurt School, he was a part of the American Jewish Congress. So this Jew that was telling white people, you can't be ethnocentric, you can't be Christian, you can't care about your own self-interest. He was a part of a literal Jewish ethnic advocacy group. And the American Jewish Congress actually published a lot of the Frankfurt School's work, The Authoritarian Personality, The Dialect of the Enlightenment. It was literally published by a Jewish ethnic advocacy group, while all these guys were going around saying to white people, you can't be ethnocentric, you can't be proud to be white, you can't be Christian, anything like that.
It's such a ridiculous argument, too, because the greatest cultures that the world has ever known were built on the backs of sexual restraint. So and it's so easily refuted.
Well, and not only that, but the family is the basic building block of society.
Of course.
Without families, without properly functioning families, you don't get a properly functioning society.
Absolutely.
And so that has been, I mean, that's one of the things that was...
Pinesap trying to get in there, I see you.
What was that book, The Authoritarian Personality? Go ahead, Pinesap.
I was just going to say, even the dichotomy that we accept, sexual restraint versus sexual freedom, that is not a dichotomy that even God maps out for us. When I choose to be a monk, or I choose to be chaste even within marriage, or I choose to respect my wife and not see her as like an object or whatever, like, hey, we gotta do something, for the 5th night in a row, right? There is a freedom that comes from that is not so much a giving up, but is more so a call to something higher. I think St. John Paul II put this well in his theology of the body, where it's not so much about the spiritual life being no to sex, no this, no that. There is that element, but every no is a higher yes. And I think that higher yes is the sort of spiritual freedom we seek when we are able to no longer be controlled by our appetites, but we're able to be controlled by just the indwelling of the Holy Spirit. And so it's not even so much a matter of like, oh, these societies flourished just because they were sexually repressed. No, it's like they said yes to a higher calling. They said yes to this higher calling. And that's why we built the most beautiful cathedrals in the world. That's why we opened the greatest universities and the greatest works of art. It was because of that higher yes that God calls us to.
They had a completely different conception of freedom that we have now.
Oh, yeah.
If the founders had this conception of freedom, and they had a more traditional conception, which is that freedom was essentially the ability to be able to self-govern yourself. Because if you weren't able to do that, you would not be free. You would fall into tyranny, which is the greatest tyranny of all, which is the tyranny of sin. You would become a slave to yourself, a slave to your own being, your own sin. And so freedom, which is a good, it is a virtue, but it's a completely different conception of freedom. Freedom is your ability to regulate yourself. That's why all of the founders, they talked about, the Constitution's only for religious people. If a free society doesn't have virtue, it's not going to be a free society. And so when we talk about freedom and liberty nowadays, we're talking about, you just have the negative rights to do whatever you want. It's not at all for the vast majority of history of how are the founding fathers of our country and the great European philosophers that came before them. That is not at all how they conceptualize it. It's something much more akin to what Pinesap was describing.
I agree. I mean, freedom means not being a slave to your vices. And that's the higher calling of man. And it's, temperance is a difficult path, but it's one that we all need to choose to follow. We do have a bunch of super chat questions for you guys, I think.
I think we do. Let me just...
Yeah, y'all are making some money today. That's good. That's good.
That's awesome.
Get your questions into the backlash.net/super chat.
Yeah, get your money in so we can pay these Jews over Google so that we don't have to break it up into multiple segments.
Yes, definitely give us money so we can just give it to Jews.
Jeepers creepers. All right.
Google's mostly Indian now. That's the thing.
Yeah, really.
It's Indian Jew. Great. Dude, talk about greatest ally.
Oh,
the greatest ally to Jews is Indians,
bro.
Yeah. They're just
they're the brown Jews. Yeah.
All right, let's see here. Where do we begin? Okay, here we go. Righteous Muffin sent $10. I got my dad's wife turned on to Nick Fuentes the other day with his stream about J.D. Vance and Tucker Carlson. She loved him. Some boomers can be woken up. Funny, though, she hit the same wall as me when trying to talk to her friend about it.
Yeah, I think that stream has gone viral because it's one of the greatest orations that I've ever
of this
seen.
Generation.
It was just incredible to watch because Nick Fuentes, he used to engage in some slop tactics and had some unsavory alliances. Something has happened to him over the last few months where he's just become a man, and it's wonderful to watch him develop this meta political analysis in such a concise and articulate way because it's so useful for all of us. I was watching that and it was like he was connecting all the dots for me, and I've been doing this for 10 years. And I'm just so happy to see it. Like I'm so happy to see it.
He has a way
Tucker
with words.
Completely asked for it, by the way. Like he completely fucking asked for everything that Nick gave
what
him,
was he thinking? He must have gotten the call.
CIA connections.
Yes,
I would agree.
He and Candace got the call because I was watching this and I was like, this is the greatest PR disaster of his entire career. This might be career-ending stuff. I don't think you can get anywhere in media anymore without the support of Groypers. I really don't, or the support of Nick Fuentes.
True. Sorry, Pinesap.
I was just going to chime in. When Tucker uses the concept of, you're the gay kid living in your parents' basement or what have you. There is something so deeply disingenuous about that insult because for so many of Gen Z, we hear this all the time. I mean, I know Patrick Bet David is like, we need immigration because these Gen Z kids are lazy. Well, no, it's that we can't afford houses because BlackRock is buying all of them. When, you could work a summer at McDonald's and buy a Ford Plymouth and, get a house, down payment on a house the next summer, super easy, right? We are out here struggling. We are out here striving to make something of ourselves. We get, education, we get degrees, we get job training, and yet we're still struggling to make ends meet. And so when he comes in with this tepid boomer insult of, you just need to pick yourself up from the bootstraps. You're just angry because you live in your parents' basement. You don't know what it's like in our world, pal. Okay. I'm sorry, but my dad didn't hand me everything from the time I was born. I had to work to become something. You, on the other hand, were some trust fund baby who basically had his entire career made for him before he ever reached the age of 13.
And the connections, yes.
You're going to get me a little fired up bringing this stuff up because, Nick made this point, and it's something that has to be reiterated, is that we are the disenfranchised white people that Tucker pretend to appeal to.
Yep.
And so, there's always been this type of elitism with these people where they look down in disgust at people who are lower working middle class, someone. And also another thing is that, it's really actually hard to make ends meet. Nowadays it's really hard to make ends meet, but it's even more hard when you actually express political opinions like me and Pinesap do, and you get the exact treatment that we got, which is both of us are doxxed. Both of us where Pinesap had his whole livelihood taken away from him. He was fired from his job. So you can't stick up for white people and not basically live with your parents, or it's extremely hard not to. It's extremely hard nowadays to express the things that you actually believe in and then also not be the quote unquote gay kid who lives in the basement with his parents. It's extremely disingenuous. And I would say downright evil for him to even say something like that because he made his whole political career being the populist who's going to appeal to the disenfranchised white people. And then he's going to use that as a fucking insult. It actually really bothers me.
Oh, it should bother you. Absolutely.
And I was going to say, I mean, so I guess maybe the people that follow our show very closely would kind of know about my background, right? Like I went to college, I was in the music industry, I was in Boston, chewed me up, spit me out. But one of the greatest things that actually happened to me was going back and living, well, not in my parents' basement, but my parents' attic, basically. And you know what? That gave me time to make money, to get a job, to create savings, buy a car, and not have to worry about some awful landlord squeezing you out like a wet rag for every last drop that's in you between, being used up by the corporations or being used up by the landlords. And then, these landlords nowadays, they'll kick you out and then put a black mark on your social credit score, and you will never be able to get a apartment ever again.
You have an unlimited tide of people coming into the country competing with the fucking houses because they barely even build anything. So not only are you trying to buy a house or rent a house that's already astronomically at a cheap rate, not cheap, the opposite of cheap, at an extremely high rate, you have to compete with other people who they're constantly bringing into the country. There's a huge increase of competition for houses because of immigration. So it's like the Pinesap brought up this, I don't know who he was, but some guy, he said, you got to bring all the immigrants because the Gen Z are too lazy to work. Why the fuck do you think they won't work? It's because they're crowded out by the immigrants you keep bringing into the country.
Yes.
Or you go open up business in another country to hire very cheap labor. And they either offshore or onshore jobs. You're literally... the prescription to the problem you're describing is the literal problem.
Yes, exactly. But there is a silver lining to this because as your generation becomes more disaffected, you have less to lose and more people are going to speak out and become racially unified, which when everybody else dies off, there will be no cancel culture because who would be there to enact it?
Right. Pinesap,
that's true. Well, and currently that's exactly it, Rebecca. It's the apparatus that we live under creates this system where it can just easily disaffect us at a moment's notice. But when those people lose power, when those people are some, geriatric old fogey in the old folks home and they can't press a button anymore, we're going to be the ones who inherit the earth. We're going to be the ones who take over, and we're not going to care about cancel culture. I mean, consider for a moment, one of the most popular platforms right now is Kick, right? And Kick's not particularly political. It's not particularly like a very charged platform. But people love that streaming service primarily because it's unfiltered, it's uncensored. People can do what they want. They're not getting the ban hammer, thrown down on them. And I think that even though normies are watching something like that, it's emblematic of a deeper trend in our generation where it's like, we just don't give a rip. We don't care at all. You want to cancel us? Fine, go for it, right? We want to have fun. We want to speak our minds and we want to be able to speak out.
Now, how, Pinesap, we'll get back to the super chats in just a second. This did happen. It says, from an AF Post, Catholic commentator Pinesap has been fired from his job after his appearance on Jubilee debating Mehdi Hassan. What has the fallout been like? Have you been able to recover from that? Next steps and all that kind of stuff. How are you doing on that front?
Well, I just wanted to thank everyone from the bottom of my heart for the Give, Send, Go. That meant a lot to me. I remember I was going on the Rift that night, and I just lost my job that day. I'd gotten a text about it, and I was really blue, and I was kind of telling Elijah, I was like, I'm going to try to give it my all. I'm going to give, a great performance on this podcast. But if I seem a little bit down, it's for that reason. I lost my job.
You got fired via text?
Well, basically, yeah. Well, because what happened was...
Oh, that's shitty.
Yeah, without getting into details, the people who were mocking me for it were like, oh, you got fired because like the company found out or something. No, you went to my company,
right?
You harassed them, right? Mob justice, and then hung, and they had to, of course, hang me out to dry because it's like they don't want a liability on their hands, right?
They did the same thing to me, except they did it with my school, which I've graduated from. I graduated my high school last year, and they didn't. I'm a NEET, right? I don't really have that much at stake, right? But so they didn't really have any way to fuck with me. So what they did is, a bunch of them have just been harassing the high school that I went to that I graduated from a year ago.
That's so
like
stupid.
They don't have another way to reach me, so they just did that. These people are insane.
Yeah.
And in my opinion, what makes it so, because we both went on Jubilee, we argued with Mehdi Hassan. I posted a video to Twitter about this. What makes it more particularly evil is Mehdi was basically ankle biting you. When he was like, all these millions of people, you might have a job, they're going to see this and you may have consequences. He knows the exact system that fired you because it also fucking fired him from his job when he was doing milquetoast Palestinian support. So it's really evil what that guy fucking did. I really don't like that guy. I felt a little, because I didn't really know who he was. I knew he was one of the brown guys that was fired from MSNBC because Pinesap will vouch. We found out who we were debating when he walked into the studio. We had no idea who was coming up there. We all thought it was going to be like Hassan Piker or maybe one of the DNC guys from TikTok, Parker Adeem. And this guy comes walking in, and none of us really knew who he was. I had to do research into him. total, in my opinion, him going on Jubilee was his forgiveness letter to the status quo about what he had done with supporting the Palestinian movement. That's my opinion. I think that's what he did, going after all of these, far right conservatives. He's arguing with them. Just a total grifter, total scumbag. He's a horrible person. I don't feel bad telling him.
I agree. I mean, we were look, I was expecting Harry Risen, and I was going to
the goat.
We may disagree, but bro, you pull. Okay, I'm just going to say that you pull.
True.
You clear. We might disagree, but I gotta show some respect on your name,
the
right?
Goat.
But instead, it's like we get Mehdi Hassan, and I the first thing I thought to myself is, who the hell is this guy?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know who this guy is. Like, I just see this like Indian guy walk out. I'm like, okay, like this isn't any figure of note. And everyone got to talking because some people in our crowd did know who he was, and kind of updated us on, he'd gotten fired from MSNBC and what have you. But someone like that, it was very interesting because even in our interaction, I thought in some ways we were kind of having an interaction at first kind of similar to him and Kai, where him and Kai had a very amiable interaction. It was very positive. It's hard not to love Kai. He's a very sweet guy.
Very good guy.
Yeah, exactly. And it like went from that to kind of quickly devolving into, him just wanting to call me the F word, the N word, calling me a Nazi, calling me a fascist, and all these things. And, my approach, and I would have done it differently in retrospect because I'm just a Catholic. That's my politics, right? I'm not this ideology or that ideology. I'm just a Catholic. But all I wanted to say to him is like, you label us these terms all the time. You call us these terms all the time. You character assassinate us all the time using these little phrases, these little slurs. And I'm sick of it, dude. We are a new generation that wants to do the right thing. We want to uphold virtue and we want to create a better country. And you're not going to come in here and just label me a bunch of different phrases because you get pissed that I don't want kids being killed in the womb and I don't want two dudes pretending to be married.
Yeah,
I would go a step further than that. Not only and this really exemplifies how bad this guy is as a person, not only have, all of us get called that for being, far right and whatever. How many times do you think he's been called a Nazi? How many times do you think he's been asked to condemn the Holocaust for not supporting the genocide that's going on in Gaza? So for him to do what he did, which is basically reaffirm the Jewish Zionist playbook about using the Holocaust and Nazism as a political scheme and a political argument, really shows what type of guy this is. Because there's no telling how many interviews he's gone on and it has been asked the exact same questions, the exact same manner that he asked you. It's really a despicable thing, actually.
This actually leads us to an interesting super chat that we got from Anonymous, who sent $5. Why did that guy call himself a fascist? Were you nervous or something? It's not even a sustainable ideology, ?
Who sent this?
Why didn't you steelman Mehdi's positions and carry them through to their natural end? I don't know, an anonymous person did, but this.
How about you go up there? That guy that just super chatted that. How about you go up there in front of millions of people who you're going to see it and argue with the guy who literally wrote a book about debating, and then you tell me what you would have done.
Yeah, exactly. Not only that, but I think colloquially, fascism has a much different connotation than it does historically, and I think that even historically, that it's a very defensible position.
Yeah. No, it obviously is. And especially like we were saying, when Nazism and fascism is used as a way to demonize people that like have a rightly ordered view of the natural world, because that's how those slurs are used today. They don't actually mean Nazi or fascist. Remember that dinner we went to with what's his face from Mother Jones? And it's like, can you please define fascism for me? And like 2.5 hours later, nothing.
Right.
Never able to define it, never able to actually.
It's an anti-white slur.
It
basically,
is.
That's all it really is. If there's a white guy stating his opinions, you're going to get called that. Just like how Karen's an anti-white slur. If you're a woman and you're standing on business, you're going to get called a Karen. It's anti-white. And fascism's the same way. Racism's the same way. Anti-Semitic is the same way, but that's more diverse. If you oppose Jewish power, you're anti-Semitic.
They've
all
moved
these
to
things are the
Jew
same
hater
thing, which
now.
is just a silencer. It's a repressive. It's it's one of those things that completely shuts everything down.
Yeah, it's funny. The anti-Semite thing doesn't really work anymore now. So they've been trying
Jew
to
hater.
You're a Jew hater. It's like, no, actually not.
I like that a little bit better. I'm going to be honest.
It's got more bite.
Well, it actually means something, because calling somebody anti-Semitic, it's like the Palestinians that you people are massacring right now, they're Semitic too. Like, what does that mean? What are we even talking about?
If you go look at like what the ADL considers anti-Semitic, and they're like the authority on this matter, it's literally just holding positions that people have held since like literally just up until like 40 years ago. In fact, I still hold to like saying the Jews killed Jesus. That is literally the position. That's anti-Semitic.
It's
saying
a central
that
focal
Jews
point
are
of the
overrepresented
Christian
in
faith.
places of power. That's anti-Semitic. Well, that's just true. Like that's just true. Like.
Yeah.
Like it's literally just empirical facts are anti-Semitic, which is from.
Yeah, we got another question for Pinesap from Righteous Muffin, who sent $10. Ask Pinesap if he would rather have America be a Catholic multicultural nation or a 90 to 95% white atheist country that made Christian ethics the law. Interesting, weird.
So the latter question is if it made Christian ethics the law.
Yes.
But it was atheist.
Yes.
That's a Christian nation, though.
That's exactly it. That is a Christian
me.
nation. And like, how would you uphold Christian ethics if you didn't have a base view of the Catholic worldview? That doesn't make any sense. Sin can't dwell with light, right? Virtue can't dwell with iniquity. So that's kind of fighting for two different kingdoms, right? And what I would say is, this was a common like alt-right Wignat talking point back then. I think when we first emerged on the dissident right, the Catholic right first emerged, where they would say, oh, well, would you rather have a nation where you're a minority, but it's Catholic, or it's white, but it's atheist? And you can look at a white atheist nation like Iceland, right? Iceland has one of the largest gay pride parades in the entire world. They have a penis museum. They have like unbelievable rates
of abortion. The women have the highest
and
number of sexual partners of any country in the world.
Really?
I think it's 26.
I mean, it's like it's completely degenerate. Like, yes, it's a ethno state technically, but what good is it? I want to challenge maybe the person who asked that. Not that they were asking it in a bad way, but what good is it if I achieve a sort of temporal safety for white people and they're still damning their souls to hell?
Mm-hmm.
What good is it if I achieve sort of temporal safety and, I get all these goods and there's an abundance of economic freedom or what have you for white people, but they're not inheriting the kingdom of God? You are subordinating the temporal end to be higher really than the eternal end. And the eternal end is what we want for everybody. We want everyone to go to heaven. That's my mission at the end of the day. Catholicism isn't just a political ideology. It's my entire metaphysical construct and worldview. And if I'm not getting people to heaven, we're failing at that point. We're fundamentally failing.
Listen, I'm going to have to push back on this just a little bit. Just a little bit of banner. Listen, if it is multicultural, whites are a minority, but everyone's Christian, or if everyone's white and no one's Christian, I'm taking the latter. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you why. Is you can't turn blacks white. You can turn an atheist Christian. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, sorry, but I don't want my daughter to grow up like in a city where like she might be like the chances of her being like raped or like me being mugged is like astronomically high. Yeah. Right. And that will happen because blacks go to church. Like they go to church much more than white people do. And that's not really detering them from doing anything. So, it is a false premise because I want a white and Christian nation. But if I had to choose, I would take the white I think it would just be a better country to live in, at least, in a material sense. And then you can change people's minds. You can change people's spirits. You can change the way people feel about things. You can't change someone's DNA. If the transhumanists get their way, maybe you'll be able to, but that's in the very, very not so near future. So for the most part, I actually would take the white nation, but there are a little bit of caveats there.
Interesting. All right. Book Track Groove sent $10. Bible quiz. What happened in 2 Samuel chapter 16 and what is said in Romans 12?
I have no clue.
But I'm gonna defer to Pinesap.
I'm trying to even remember off the top of my head. I'm horrible at recalling specific verses from chapters and verse numbers, but I'd have to pull it up.
We're Catholic.
Yeah,
we
we're
don't
Catholics.
Just like
We're not Bible.
the scripture. We don't do that.
Well, I do want to get to a point where I can, but I'm still working on that.
I defer to the priest and the traditions and what they say on these things. I don't trust myself to interpret the literal word of God. No, I don't really trust myself with that. I don't memorize chapter and verse. I mean, obviously,
it's really
I have verses I remember. I know this stuff,
obscure.
but this is a random question like that.
Yeah, this is super obscure. We got some backup from Grok actually over here.
Shout out to Grok.
Shout out Grok. Ziba's deception. Shimmy curses David. Absalom enters Jerusalem. I don't even this is not
it was a trap. Book track grooves.
Yeah, he's smarter than us sometimes. Romans chapter 12, living sacrifice, humility, and diversity in the body of Christ marks the true living Christian.
What? He doesn't know this.
There's a bunch of things in Romans chapter 12 that could be referenced here. I don't really, because there's a bunch of stuff in Romans. Romans is a beautiful book.
Romans 1, my favorite, by the way, because it tells you what happens when a society forgets God, and basically everybody becomes like sodomite murderers, and not good.
True,
not good.
Romans 13 has a very political. It's important for the has a lot of political implications. Romans 13, it talks about submitting to state power and submitting to the governing authorities, and the state and the government's actually an institution that's ordained by God. If it's a just state, if it is Christian and carries out its duties, but it is an institution that's ruled and sanctioned by God. Romans actually has a good bit of political implications.
Yeah. Reinhardt sent $25. Love these guys. You guys are doing great with guests.
Love you too.
Love you too.
We
buddy.
love Reinhardt.
Thank you for the big super chat, Reinhardt. And yeah, by the way, August is my month.
It is.
August is and I might be bleeding into September just a little bit.
That's okay. That's okay.
I forget who
Ready
that is.
for fall.
But we've got some big guests coming up. Not only these two today, but next week we've got Marcel Dumas coming on the show.
My goat.
Then we hold on a second. See, now I'm always blanking on who our guests are.
To be fair, my month was awesome.
Marcel is great.
We
had
great.
Arvel on. We had Phil Turney.
Then we have on August 18th, Harrison Smith joining us from InfoWars.
Nice.
And closing out the month, we have the one and only Pastor Joel Webben from Right
nice.
Response Ministries.
You're fixing to say Joel Berry for
word
a little
on the
bit.
street is
that guy. I was like, you might have to
Don't do that.
No.
Listen,
If we ever do a right-wing
Catholic.
creator clash, if we ever do a right-wing creator clash, me and Joel, let's do it.
Absolutely.
Send me back to the Stone Age, old man. I'm just
Who's coming on September 1st?
That's a great question. I forget. Who did I say was coming on? Oh, Elijah Schaefer.
Yep.
Elijah Schaefer is going to be coming on September 1st. And we are in talks with the one and only Saifuddin Amu, who might be coming on.
Are you just bleeding over into my month?
A little bit. But we might paywall the Saifuddin content. I'm not sure yet. We're still working it out. I think he's in Europe. So the time zones are a little different.
Okay.
He might be speaking at a conference over there. So.
We're fame leeches. That's what we are.
Well, that's how we make money. So anyway, Book Track Group sent $10 on Rumble. Oh yes, coin me, coin all over me with your big Atlas gold coin. Who the fuck is BAP? Not explaining the lore, Doomer mineral water and lemons.
BAP is Bronze Age pervert.
Okay, I'll give the lore. If it's pretty big, but basically there's this Romanian Jew. He's half Romanian and half Jew. So if you could ever think of someone's blood sucking, like if a blood sucking parasite was in someone's DNA, it would be fucking that. And this guy's basically a pagan Nietzschean who has basically infiltrated the dissident right and pushed. I call it crypto Zionist. We've heard of crypto Jew, crypto Zionist talking points. And kind of giving it a more, base. And that's what this fucking guy looks like. He
literally looks like a vampire.
Bodybuilder, by the way. This guy LARPs as a fucking nudist bodybuilder. Everything's aesthetics with these people. There's almost nothing of substance. And his whole and he's heavily bankrolled, just like Curtis Yarvin, by Peter Thiel. We all know about Peter Thiel with Palantir and the military contracts and the infiltration that's going on with the CIA there. Basically, this guy has infiltrated the dissident right. He has a lot of influence, not a lot of influence, but he has a sphere, heavily connected guy with a lot of influential people. Captive Dreamer, he's one of those guys in there. He has a big following on Twitter. And in my opinion, their goal essentially is to make Zionism cool on the dissident right, or make, philo-Semitism cool on the dissident right. If you're not a philo-Semite, if you're not a Zionist, you're peasant coded, you're brown coded. If you make moral arguments, not this grug racism good because I have, big guns, but if you make a moral argument for right preservation, you're leftist coded. Bap shot some strays at me the other day. He has me blocked, but he shot some strays at me the other day talking about, the quote. He said, he put it in quotes, he was calling everything fake. He called Nick and the Candace thing fake. And then he goes, the Jubilee debates was fake, throwing some shade over at me and Pinesap over here. But yeah, that's basically the lore. He's this Jew who's heavily bankrolled by guys with CIA assets to, in my opinion, just make Jews look cool on the far dissident right.
Well, he also go ahead.
Bankrolled to make them look cool while also looking like he's 8 months pregnant. So he
looks like a fucking bug, dude. Like he fucking.
But I mean, the other thing that, this BAP network, I've noticed, and I remember I've said this before, I was talking with my dad, and it's like, you get these guys that are out there talking about bodybuilding, slonking raw eggs, eating meat, getting fit, going to the gym, and then hyping you up to go die in a war for Israel, right? Like they are attempting to
he's showing his gains.
They are attempting to get white men to be in shape,
absolutely,
so that they can be used as cannon fodder for the Jewish empire.
That's actually something that's important I want to touch on real quick, is the vibe shift. You're seeing white people in commercials again. The language is changing. Did you see the Republican from Nebraska, the white woman doing a Roman in the picture? A lot of people were saying she wasn't doing the Roman. I think she was. And the reason, and it's not because she's some base secret Nazi. They're signaling towards us. Who's James Lindsay, the woke right, and this distinction? It's a very gay distinction to make. I don't really like it that much. But there is a distinction that's forming on the right, which is ones that care about race, you care about religion, you care about your heritage, and then the classical liberals. And they know that this quote unquote woke right side is winning. And so they're forced to signal towards us. They're going to put white people in commercials again. They're going to do really edgy stuff like throw up a Roman. They're going to use really cool rhetoric. But the whole point of it is you're not going to get anything of substance. Your deportations are not happening. Epstein files are not coming out. And it's simply just to bring, because white people have essentially been completely disassociated from the system, especially since Biden. And Israel's in a lot of deep trouble right now. And the regime just in general, the synagogue, as I would call it, in contrast to Yarvin's cathedral, is completely demoralized. And the way to moralize it back is get the only actual real productive population in the country, the white people, to be brought back into it. So you're going to get right-wing ads. You're going to get a right-wing culture shift. And it's completely just to bring you back into the system and completely give it moralized and support it again.
Yep.
Well, and notice how the culture war now, every few months, or really kind of every month at this point, is like the right and the left debating over like Gooner softcore pornography ads, right? It's like, well, I think Sydney Sweeney's boobs are rat wing. And then it's like, well, I think the problem is that she's not black and transgender. And it's like,
it's so stupid, bro.
Dichotomy?
I saw so many people soy jacking on the right. Laura Loomer said something about it with Sydney Sweeney and the American Eagle ad. The CEO of American Eagle is Jewish. And not only is he Jewish, right after October 7th happened, American Eagle sponsored an ad on Times Square on this big ass building. It was nothing but a fucking Israeli flag. Like that's who's giving you your base white, right wing trad e-girl, Sydney Sweeney.
But it's meaningful that they think that they have to address this now. That means that white nationalism is mainstream.
Well, it's certainly trending towards that way. The consciousness is waking up.
It's just signaling. It's just vibes.
It is just vibes.
As long as these people are in power, you're not going to get anything except Columbia having to pay $200 million to the federal government, including $21 million to their Jewish faculty and students, because they failed to clamp down on those anti-Israel protests. That's what you're going to be getting. That's your base.
Not only that, but also
your base Trump.
Just today, I think they did something where basically any state that gets hit with a natural disaster, in order for people that are affected by that natural disaster to get relief funding, they have to sign a pledge supporting Israel.
Wow.
They have to sign the pledge that they will not boycott, divest, or sanction or engage with any groups that do.
Sorry for the tangent, by the way.
No, it's all good. Let's see here. We have Anonymous sent $10. Can I request that you interview Chuck E. 2009? He would be an awesome interview. He had a huge welding channel on YouTube that got banned when he read Brandon Tarrant's manifesto and started red pilling people on his channel. Okay. So, Righteous Muffin sent $10.
That's the best manifesto, though. Outside of Ted Kaczynski, Brenton Tarrant, his was excellent.
I've never read it.
What?
I've never read it.
It's like top 10.
Ted Kaczynski was... never mind.
Yeah, we did a whole episode. You could go back. I think it was actually episode 4 that we did the Ted Kaczynski thing on.
Uncle Ted.
He was AGP.
Righteous Muffin sent $10. We also have to remember that our generations were propagandized to believe that being a construction worker or working in trades should be looked down on.
Yeah.
People were told to go into tech, and now Indians and AI are taking it over. Just learn to code, bro.
Yep.
Yeah. Totally true.
That's also a multi-level thing, the whole you don't go to college thing, because all that does is let up Jews and liberals have a monopoly on college, because the only people who are pushing the don't go to college thing are conservatives. So what happens is, and their audience is mostly young white men. So Charlie Kirk going around telling people not to go to college, not only is it really stupid because the jobs you're going to college for, Indians and Chinese people are coming to take them and they're doing them. It's deliberately forcing people to, when you're telling them not to go to college, what that's happening is culture and politics starts at academia. And so when you're telling people not to go to academia, that just opens up a huge monopoly for our enemies to actually have a stranglehold on the academia. And that's literally what's happening.
Yep.
Don't know what that sound was. Let's see. Anonymous.
15 minutes thing again.
Oh, geez.
Oh,
well,
no.
we got to wrap these super chats up pretty quick then. Let's see. Righteous Muffin sent $10. Pinesap should have turned the fascist thing around on him, talked about America's government and how the politicians do everything against our will and does stuff that hurts our people and country, and ask how this democracy
He did do that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Righteous Muffin.
Yeah.
What do they think the friend enemy distinction is? Why do they think you brought that up? What the fuck?
And the thing was, and I've kept saying this on interviews and stuff like that. It's like, I didn't bring Schmidt up because I'm like, oh, he's a Nazi or something like that. It's like he's referenced by liberal academics. The reason I brought him up was because I was bringing up that friend enemy distinction, and the whole point of like, liberals love to, moralize about democracy or what have you, but they're willing to use the quote unquote machinery of democracy to persecute us and go after us. And so when we get in power and we actually want to do something with that power, like, again, criminalize abortion or ban gay marriage or what have you, don't come crying to us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, they've kind of set the precedent for that. Anonymous sent $5 regarding fascist equals sustainable. How long would fascist Italy and Nazi Germany have lasted if they had won the war, when they ran out of countries to loot and they couldn't pay back the huge loans they took out before the war? My God.
Well, I can actually address this because I know
you don't understand their economies. Go ahead.
Yeah, they would have been very sustainable because these countries were experiencing growth that had never really been seen before. You can talk about the debt, but what's really important is the debt to GDP ratio. How much debt was being accumulated plus the growth that the economy was actually having. How much could you actually pay that debt back? And a lot of that debt was denominated in their own currency.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it was essentially they were debt to themselves, which is not that big of a deal. And once again, the debt really wasn't that big of a deal. How sustainable would they would have been? That's only a question that you can answer if we know all these other different types of things, that like what they would have done. And frankly, we don't know what they would have done because international Jewry put the fucking gun on these guys almost immediately.
Right.
What's interesting is even prior to the war, even in America, even in these other countries, they're actually looking to Italy as a sign of an economic miracle.
Yeah, that's where the New Deal came from.
Yeah, the Italian miracle, because essentially the sort of corporatist system, not as in corporations, but the idea of kind of worker and company working in harmony for the greater good of the nation that they live in, that economic system kind of blew through the Great Depression. They didn't have really a Great Depression in Italy going on, similar to the other countries that had more just a usury-based capitalist model. I mean, those countries were suffering while Italy was experiencing some of the best economic abundance they had seen in years.
Yeah. Yeah, and
it was the most they've ever seen in Italy and in Germany. And in Germany, these countries were thriving, and they were probably going to continue to thrive. We don't really know because sadly they were destroyed. But the only thing I can really say is not only was Italy and also Germany doing very well economically, they're also doing very well spiritually. Not a lot of people know this, but the reason why the Vatican has sovereignty and the Vatican is its own independent state is because Mussolini and the fascist government made a deal with the Vatican where they declared Catholicism the national religion. They gave the Vatican sovereignty. And for the first time, basically in contemporary Italian history, the Vatican recognized Italy as a valid state because there had been a lot of contentions about the papal states and how things like that had been going on. And they solved essentially what they called the Roman question, where the Catholic Church and the Italian state was finally actually unionized. And then with Germany, I mean, everyone knows they cleared out the homosexuals, they cleared out the transgenders, they solved the prostitution, which was rampant during the Weimar Republic. So not only were these countries economically very stable, spiritually, they were thriving in a way that hadn't been seen in years.
And I reject the premise that Hitler's modus operandi was worldwide domination.
Yeah, he wasn't going around looting people. I mean, maybe he looted the Rothschilds' bank just a little bit, right? I mean, I think they kidnapped one of the Rothschild boys, held him for ransom, and then took all of the assets of the bank. But I mean, like, that was a good thing because they had stolen that anyway. So fuck it.
Fair play.
By the way, Hitler was Man of the Year in 1938, according to Time magazine. He was lauded for his economics. A lot of people don't know that. Yeah, that is a real magazine that
so handsome.
Actually happened. So there was something else I was going to put.
You better hustle before these boys get the boot.
I know. Something about corporations. Yes. This is something that has never really been able to be tried in America because when you look at, there was a court case between the Dodge brothers and Henry Ford. The Dodge brothers sued Henry Ford because Ford wanted to take the profits from Ford Motor Company and improve the working conditions, raise laborers' wages, and make Ford a better company to work for. And the Dodge brothers believed that all of the profits from Ford should be used to enrich the shareholders. They took him to court, sued him, and that basically created this precedent where corporations only purpose for existing is to enrich the shareholders, and it has nothing to do with improving the lives of their workers, which is why we get a lot of the union busting and foreign labor coming in because they have to drive down wages to maximize profits for the shareholders. So this is, that is a precedent that should be overturned at some point. Would be nice. Let's see what happens. I'm not holding my breath. Anonymous sent $5. I'd love to have the opportunity to debate Mehdi, and I would ask him if white immigration was good for his native India and whether he genuinely believes
That's evil. No, that's horrible.
An actual nation of immigrants can exist or have to latch itself onto a native body.
Right.
That's evil. It's evil when white people do it.
Yep. Hold on. I got to reply to a text message.
Also, I don't know if y'all know this, but Mehdi, like 15 years ago, was like a radical Islamicist. Like, there's clips of him at the mosque, like saying all these evil things about kafirs.
Well, if I might interject, even he this year in February, I think it was around the 15th, said, "Make American planes crash again," when a tragic plane accident happened in Georgia. 2 innocent people who didn't have government positions, were just normal people in a private plane, sadly lost their lives. And he's celebrating their deaths saying, "Make American planes crash again." Who is this guy to moralize to anybody else?
Yeah, you're right. Here's the tweet. "Make American planes crash again." What a son of a bitch.
Bastard.
He is, you know what? He is not allowed on the Backlash. Righteous Muffin.
No, but you know what he did go on? He went on the Bulwark, which is a media program owned by Bill Kristol, the neocon Jew. So he does this Israel art. First interview he went on after Jubilee was on the Bulwark, which is a neoconservative, pro, spreading liberal democracy and whatnot, owned by a neocon Jew. That's where he went.
It's always
just a total grifter.
It's always so sad to see, and like we're seeing this even with again, what's this guy from Mother Jones, where it's like you get fired from the Southern Poverty Law Center for standing up against the genocide in Gaza. And then you turn around and start working for Mother Jones magazine, taking your marching orders from like murderous Zionists, painting them,
I have a soft spot for him. We'll see when this hit piece comes out.
It's supposed to come out maybe September. I was joking with him the other day, like, oh, look, it's coming out just in time to sway the election in November. Great work, guys. You know what I mean? Like, totally not transparent here. Right Juice Muffin sent $5. Pinesap evaded my question. If those were the only two options, which one would you pick? The Bible could be seen as a book of morals to base a society on without believing in God and Jesus. These hypotheticals, man, they're infuriating.
So is he? I think I missed that question a little bit. Is he asking?
Do you want to live in a 90 to 95% white atheist country or a multicultural Catholic nation?
Well, again, it's a false premise because I think that Doomernat put it well where, I do believe that if we just had the native population, that population could convert or what have you. But again, I think it's seeing the whole conversation too much through temporal means. If I care about my race, if I care about my people, what I ultimately want is the salvation of my people. And this is the way that the saints spoke. When any saint from a particular culture, whether it was Europe, Africa, Asia, converted, they saw a debt and a duty to their people to convert them to the true faith and get them to heaven. And that's the same, that is the same view that I have. I am sad to see white people turning away from Christianity, white people turning away from Catholicism, and I want to bring us back into the church as I want to bring all people back into the church. So I reject that false premise. I think that there's no reason to have the case where the native population doesn't exist. And so, yes, I would agree that I think the native population should be there, but the native population needs to be converted.
Yeah.
When people pose this question, it's something. My answer to this is always: would Ireland be Ireland without Catholicism? Would Italy be Italy without Catholicism? Would Germany be Germany without Catholicism and then later Luther? Would America be America without the WASP Protestant population? No, it wouldn't be. You cannot separate people from its history and also its faith. And it is true that we used to be pagan, but as soon as we came into contact with Christ, we immediately were converted. Mm-hmm. And the building of a unified Europe and Western civilization was under the Catholic Church and eventually Protestantism. Yep. So it's something you really can't separate from one another.
All right. I don't know, guys, can you tell me how much time we have left on this Google thing? It might say, I don't know if it has a countdown.
5 minutes.
Now 5 minutes.
5 minutes. All right. Okay. Anonymous sent $5. We might have missed a few of my super chats. I'll stop posting as anonymous, I guess. Hold on a second. I think you did have a super chat. Let me go back, but I didn't think
just keep sending money.
I don't think it really pertained to anyone. Let's see. No, I read all those. This was the one that I hadn't done yet because I didn't see how it was directed towards anyone, and we are limited on time. Anonymous sent $5. Continue on from the fairness argument. How did Nick Fuentes destroy Tucker Carlson in that brief back and forth? Because he instinctively knew to go for the fairness argument and framed Rich Tucker and Royal Candace as bitching changelings. So that was the anonymous post that I didn't get before. Sorry about that. By the way, you can type in whatever name you want, and we can keep track of it that way. But because we are on limited time, I do want to make sure that we get a good promo in for both of these guys. They're great follows on Twitter. We've got Doomernat22 at Doomernat22 on Twitter. And Feels Guy is your Pinesap's current, handle, at Feels Guy 2003.
Me and Pinesap got the same number of followers. Y'all notice that? We're both at 24K.
Nice.
We're so back.
You guys are going to grow a lot more. And we just got a $50 super chat from Purple Haze. Thank you for joining the $50 club. He didn't send any message to it. So
thank you so much.
If you did want to say something, you can send us an email to info@thebacklash. Any closing remarks, guys?
Yes. No, I have closing remarks. I hate to go into mom mode here, but you guys are just so adorable. This makes me feel so like everything is gonna be fine, like we're in good hands, like I can get old and die and it's okay. And I hope my daughters marry men like you.
Aw,
I appreciate
Thank you. That's one of the best compliments you can get, bro.
We really appreciate you guys coming on. Thank you so much. Is there any closing thoughts that you guys wanted to throw in there before we head out?
Yeah, I mean, I do. It's going to be real, like, quick and short. Yeah, my old boy already plugged my Twitter. Thank you for that. It was really nice coming on. I really appreciate it.
Old boy.
One thing I do want to shout out is Kevin McDonald has a new edition of Culture of Critique coming out. I'm not being paid to say any of this or anything like that, but I really respect him as a scholar, and so everywhere I go, I'm always going to promote K-Mac. And yeah, man, just I love being white, and everyone should love being white, and submit to Rome.
Based. Pinesap, closing thoughts.
I would just say thank you so much for having me on. This was so much fun. I had a blast with all of you guys, and I'm honored to be on this platform. And all I can say is that for anyone listening, Christ loves you. He wants a relationship with you. Follow him to the ends of the earth, and I promise that your life will be filled with immeasurable joy than you could ever comprehend. That's what I want to leave off.
Amen.
Thank you so much. We really appreciate it, guys. We'll talk to you soon.
Of course, anytime.
All
Thanks,
right.
guys.
Thank you. All right. Very good. Well, see, this is good. I'm picking better people to come on the show now. This is, we've taken some good critique from the audience. We're getting some very base people on.
I often feel like we're totally fucked. And then I'll have conversations like this, and I'll be like, all right, the next generation, they've got it under control. They've got the right attitude.
Good to go. Yeah. No. Sorry. You keep with the talking bit, because I just have a couple things.
Keep with the talking bit.
Can you please keep with the talking bit?
No, I've been thinking a lot about Nick Fuentes. I've been praying for Nick Fuentes a lot because I'm really worried he's going to get killed.
Yeah. No, it's true. Did you see that? Speaking of, just to give a little bit of a.
You told me to keep talking, and I had an end to what I was going to say, and now you've disrupted my flow.
I'm sorry, but you've reminded me of this clip.
Anyway, just watching Nick Fuentes talk for an hour and a half, 2 hours without any interruption, without losing his train of thought, it's just incredible. Like, he's just such a remarkable talent.
Yeah. No,
Glaze. I get it.
No, but we've got this clip. This is Joel Webbin, by the way. He's going to be joining us at the end of the month, but this is relevant to the discussion at hand.
Like Nick, the only way that you can really, I think, successfully get rid of him is you have to deplatform him. You have to. Because if he's allowed to speak, if he's allowed to speak, he's going to win.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean he's going to win everybody. There'll be plenty of people listening to this and be like, what? He's not going to win. He's a Fed. He's this, he's that. Well, let me say it like this. It's not just he's going to win. He's winning.
Yeah.
And you may just not have admitted it yet. And that's perfectly fine. Like you have your reasons or whatever. And I'm not going to insinuate, interior motives for why people might feel that way. But the facts still exist. I had not listened to anything from Nick Fuentes once, not even a clip, nothing, until about 6 months ago. And 6 months ago, I started listening because people that I trust, right? Not just somebody who's, off in left field, but people that I trust started sending me clips.
Yep.
And why did they start looking at these clips? Because all of a sudden he's on TikTok and he's on Instagram and he's let back on Twitter and the clips go viral on Twitter. Like for a while there, it's like he couldn't be on any platform. He's still not allowed to be on YouTube, or at least his personal channel. I think he's gone as a guest on other people's channels and YouTube has allowed it. But I think as the suppression of free speech continues to dissipate, you're not going to be able to get rid of him. You're not. And so then you can't just use the tactics of, well, he said this in this one clip, because now people are going to listen for themselves.
Very true.
So true.
And, that comes in the context of Joel tweeting this, how do you, Ryan Matta, another guest on our show, said, how do you think they plan to suicide Nick Fuentes? Joel Webbin says, I have no doubt that there are many plans. Pray for his protection. And
we should all be praying for his protection.
Remember, they sent someone to his house to kill him in December or whatever. And we were one of the only podcasts that talked about it. There was a complete news blackout on the assassination attempt against Nick Fuentes. People were pretending like it didn't happen. And then you get Tucker Carlson and Candace Owens calling him a Fed, calling him gay. And, people see through this. So this is probably going to be what we talk about on Wednesday.
Of course it is.
Because this is...
It's huge.
Between Nick Fuentes on the one side and what's happening in Israel on the other side, this is the biggest political commentator of a generation on the one hand, and on the other, the Zionism problem is the biggest issue of our generation that needs to be confronted. It's not about lower taxes. It's not about, I mean, yes, the immigration thing is obviously important, but when you really look into these issues, it wouldn't be the way that it is if it weren't for the United States and Israel's parasitic relationship one to another and Israel's control over our politics.
Absolutely.
So we have to deal with these things. We're going to talk about it on Wednesday. And let me just double check. I think we did get some more super chats. But first, we need to thank this program's sponsors. Another one of them, we already talked a little bit about Atlas Bullion, but also IdahoTallowCompany.com is a fantastic place to get skin products and your soaps and lip balm. And if you are sick of skincare packed with chemicals you can't pronounce, North Idaho Tallow Company keeps it simple. With grass-fed tallow, time-tested ingredients, and zero junk, their soaps, balms, and lip balm are packed with bioavailable nutrients your skin actually needs. No fillers, no endocrine disruptors, just rugged, reliable skincare that works. Ditch the synthetic garbage and switch to North Idaho Tallow Company. Get yours at idahotallow.com, and please do so because a portion of every bar of soap that gets sold at Idaho Tallow goes to help support this program. And also, we have to thank our wonderful sponsors, who I believe might have a hand in publishing Kevin McDonald's second edition of The Culture of Critique, is Antelope Hill Publishing.
Can I take this?
Which one? That?
Yeah.
What's that? Hold it up.
Peppermint vanilla. I'm going to take it.
Okay. That's fine. I'll ask them. They'll send us another bar.
Sweet.
We'll replace it. Antelope Hill Publishing is fighting to keep history alive against the regime of anti-white censorship and to publish a new generation of dissident, radical, and right-wing researchers, philosophers, polemicists, and writers. They have an eclectic catalog that includes veteran right-wing authors and academics like Dr. Ricardo Duchesne, Kerry Bolton, and Paul Kersey, as well as newer figures like Lord Miles Routledge of Afghanistan, Josh Neal, and Christian Secour, in addition to a long list of original translations or modern reprints of otherwise inaccessible historical works from eras such as Fascist Italy, National Socialist Germany, and even medieval Europe. Their original works include groundbreaking investigations into the causes and funding behind transgenderism and the opioid crisis, books on Christian nationalism and American folktales, and additionally, Antelope Hill also contributes to the regeneration of our culture and rebirth of our family values through their top-quality fiction, including books like Let Them Look West and Worlds Separated, and a collection of beautifully illustrated and wholesome children's books. Whatever your interest is, you're bound to find books that you like at Antelope Hill, all professionally published, with cover art that will grace your bookshelves, help us and help our people by checking out companies that share our values and work to preserve our birthright and our history. And by the way, you can pick up your own Fell For It Again award.
None of them fell for it.
And neither of them fell for it. They did not vote for Donald Trump. I did. You didn't. So that's why I'm covered in these things, head to toe.
I did in 2016.
But you can get a Fell For It Again award over at antelopehillpublishing.com and send it to your favorite boomer or Republican lawmaker. I'm sure that it will make them feel appreciated and loved. Also, with Antelope Hill, I want to give a big shout out. They are reprinting Nuremberg, The Last Battle by David Irving.
No way.
Yes, they are. But unfortunately, we aren't going to be able to get him on for an interview because he is very old. And I feel terribly about that, but it's true.
We can't get him on? He's too old?
I tried, I asked. I don't think that's going to happen.
And they told you he's too old?
Basically, that he's very old and, let him have his final years.
Yeah.
He did a lot of fighting.
Work,
he was fighting back in the 80s and the 90s. He went to jail for several years for his speech. And, let's let him have his twilight zone. We're not going to bother him. But anyway, I think that brings us up to date there. Let me just double check that there aren't any more super chats. And Anonymous did send another $5 super chat. Realistically, the religion question needs to be put on the back burner until things are solved to some extent. Separation of church and state is important to keep religious freedom, and that's not going to happen under Islam or Jewish or POC rule. Well, one of the things that winds up happening is that these liberals will shout and scream and stomp their feet and say, we need separation of church and state when the church is trying to influence the state.
Right.
And so when you get people that come together that are Christian, that are trying to reverse the tide on some of these issues, be it women's liberation or, mass immigration or anything like this, these liberals cry separation of church and state and they try to shut it down. I don't know. I don't know if guarding separation of church and state is like the biggest issue that we face right now. But you know, when we are talking about the heresy of Christian Zionism, you know, that is problematic and needs to not be influencing the state. That's a problem.
Yep.
That's a problem. Christian Zionism is a problem.
You're never going to get the press that you got in Boise.
Can you hear me now? I know.
We can all hear you. Are we good on Super Chats?
I think we are. It appears that way.
Thank you guys so much. That was such a good episode. I feel
warm and fuzzy inside.
I do. I feel
Hold on a
energized.
second. I got logged out of entropy. Let me just triple check that we don't have.
I gotta get my kids.
Yeah, I know. I gotta go smoke a cigar. All right.
What a life.
I have an appointment to go smoke a cigar.
We'll see you guys on Wednesday. This is The Backlash, and look for all of our links at thebacklash.net. Can't wait to see you on Wednesday. We are prepping a great show. It's going to be awesome. See you then.